I can promise you by the end of this video, you're going to hit the ground running as a Discipline Priest in Season 4 of Dragonflight for both Mythic Plus and Raiding. Now, I'm not going to lie, Discipline Priest is one of the more complex healers you can play. However, it can be incredibly fun when you know how, so let's find out how. Starting off then with the stat priority. Especially as a beginner, I want to emphasize that you should focus mostly on getting a higher and higher eye level of gear and therefore a higher level of intellect. The secondary stats then, if you do want to delve a bit deeper, are preferred generally in this order, but it's not one size fits all, and you should generally sim your character if you can. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. The first secondary stat is haste. This is going to increase the speed of our spell casting, meaning a higher throughput on spells, and it's also going to decrease the cooldowns on our spells as well, making everything we do a little bit faster, which is really, really good for Discipline Priests. Critical Strike, of course, giving us a higher and higher chance the more we get to do double healing and damage with our spells. Our Mastery increases the healing and shield absorbs on our targets that are afflicted with something called Atonement. And Atonement is actually what most of our healing is based around as a Discipline Priest. More on that soon. Lastly, you've got Versatility. This is going to slightly increase your healing, slightly increase your damage, and slightly reduce the damage you take. And it's a really good all-rounder stat that generally, if you're playing more Mythic Plus, you might want a little bit more of. Before we get into the really fun rotation, though, let's first look at the cooldowns and some of the utility spells we have as a Discipline Priest. And one note on this is that there are, of course, other spells in your spellbook that you have, but these are the core ones that I think are really important and you should know about. I don't want to overwhelm you with information, but I do advise once you're more comfortable with the spec that you go and look through your spellbook and see what every individual spell does and what you've got in your arsenal as a Disc Priest. But don't do that just yet, because again, it could be like really overwhelming. So on the bottom then, we've got Pain Suppression. This is a really simple defensive that you can use on anyone you like, and it's going to reduce their damage taken by 40% for a short amount of time. Up top is Evangelism. That is going to extend the duration of, there's that word again, Atonement on our targets. TLDR then, I'll just explain it quickly. Basically, to do healing as a Disc Priest, we're actually going to want to cast some spells on our allies. That's going to give them a buff called Atonement. And then any damage we do to enemies is actually going to heal our allies who have Atonement on them. So just to recap then, we're going to buff our allies with Atonement through certain spells. Enemies we damage are going to get healed on our allies from that damage done. Power Infusion, quite simply, is a 20% haste buff. Use this on an ally because we have a talent called Twins of the Sun Priestesses. Power Infusion also grants you 100% of its effects when used on an ally, meaning if you use it on yourself, only you get the effect, but if you use it on an ally, both the ally and you get the same amount of benefit from it, making it affect two people, not one. So don't be selfish, please. Then we have Ultimate Penance, something I probably need in my life. Huge AoE heal and gain an absorb shield while doing so. So you float up in the air like, oh, Jesus Christ Superstar himself, and flurry of penances, literally, that's what the spell's called, comes out of you doing a massive ton of healing. You also get an absorb shield, etc. while you're doing it. It's beautiful. The last one is Power Word Barrier, and that's a dome that you can actually place over a certain area, and any allies within that dome are actually going to have less damage taken. Then we have our utilities. So Mass Dispel is a placeable dispel that you can place, and it'll dispel anything in the area, much better than what most healers have. Leap of Faith, it's going to simply pull the ally to you. You can pull them out of the fire or whatever they're in, etc., pull them to safety. Levitate will make the target levitate, good if you're going down a big drop and you don't want full damage, and there's a few other niche reasons why you can use this, but it's pretty great overall. An Angelic Feather places a feather that grants movement speed. So you place it on the ground, you or any ally that move over it are actually then going to get a movement speed, and it has 3 charges. Now, you can also make a macro so that it automatically places it at your feet. This is something I use. I am selfish with this one. I usually just use it on myself. Now that we're in game then, let's see how it all comes together. And we're going to start off with the raid version of the build, okay, which is this one here. Don't worry, by the way, about the talents. I'm going to go through the core ones that are really important, but I'm not going to go through every single one, again, for the reason of information overload. I will put links down below so you can import your talent trees straight into the game. If you don't know how to do that, just click this little arrow here and click import, copy and paste the code that's in my description into here, and then call it whatever the hell you like. There'll be one both for Mythic Plus and raiding. Again, this one is for raiding. By the way, you may notice my UI is a bit different to how yours may look. You can import this if you'd like through my Patreon. You can sign up below in the description. You get a load of WoW spreadsheets that can be really helpful for beginners. Also, if you join my Discord, I have a WoW compendium, which is like an ebook, but it's free, by the way, for everyone. It's just in my Discord. And that has a lot of guides and places you can find guilds and all sorts of things in there. How to sim, how to log. If you don't know what those are, we can tell you in the Discord. And then you get a lot of extra features in the Patreon, like importing my entire UI. One thing you'll notice on my UI is this, and you can't click it, but what it is it's basically a weak aura from a person called Luxfoss. He makes these UI add-ons, and you can see all of your cooldowns and your mana and your resources, etc. Like this orange one here is our power word Radiance. You can see when I use it once, that then goes down. That's what these are. It's a really good way of centralizing all of the core info you need to know. And again, if you don't know how to install that, just join Discord. We'll help you out. So like I said before, the way we're actually going to heal is through something called Atonement. And if I just scoot myself over to the right here, because I want to show you. If I use Power Word Shield on myself, you can see down here on my buffs, I now have Atonement on me for, 11, 10, 9 seconds. Healed whenever I damage an enemy, and that's Atonement. So how do we get Atonement onto our allies? The first talent in our talent tree, Atonement, Power Word Shield, Flash Heal, Renew, and Power Word Radiance and Power Word Life apply Atonement to your target for 15 seconds. Your spell damage heals all targets affected by Atonement for 40% of the damage done. Healing is increased by 50% when not in a raid. So the way that we usually do it in a raid is something called ramping. We're going to ramp up our healing by putting atonements on as many members of the raid as possible, ready to do that damage on our target or the boss before the damage comes in, so that when the boss does a huge amount of damage on the raid, you've already got atonement up on everyone, so you can then do a ton of damage and heal them through that atonement. If you think about it, if the damage has just already come in and you've got no atonements up and you need to get them all up on the raid to heal them all, well, they're all going to be all dead because you've taken too damn long. So we want to ramp up before we actually do the damage and therefore do the healing. Hopefully this is making sense so far. So how are we going to do that? Well, the main way is these 5 spells here. So the first spell we have is Purge the Wicked, cleanses the target with fire, causing radiant damage and over an additional 20,000 over 20 seconds. It spreads to 2 nearby enemies when you cast Penance on the target. This is our Penance spell here. So if I cast that on the target, you can see this other target dummy here now also has Purge the Wicked on them. So again, this is a Purge the Wicked spell. It does damage and a dot, which is a damage over time. And then when we use our Penance spell, which kind of beams out some holy bolts and it can heal or do damage, that's going to spread Purge the Wicked to other targets. We then have a 1.1 minute cooldown on this spell, Rapture. Immediately, Power Word Shield your target. And for the next 8 seconds, Power Word Shield has no cooldown and absorbs an additional 40%. So this is our Power Word Shield here. You can see usually it's on a 6-second cooldown, but I've actually got a shield around me, and you can see that there. That is going to absorb damage. So when I take damage, it's going to absorb it. That's also going to apply Atonement to me. So 6-second cooldown, blah, blah, blah. When we use Rapture, there's no cooldown on our Power Word Shield, and it's going to actually absorb even more. And as well, that's going to apply Atonement. So when we're ramping up for the incoming damage in the raid, we're going to want to make sure that Purge the Wicked is on the boss. We're then going to use our Rapture so that we can get loads of Power Word Shields out with no cooldown. We're then going to use Power Word Shield on about 8 to 10 members of the raid who we're expecting to take damage. And basically, just keep doing this until Rapture ends. It's for 8 seconds. You want to get as many Power Word Shields out as you can in that 8 seconds, so that basically you have all of those people with Atonement on them. We're then going to cast both Power Word Radiance charges. We have 2 charges of this spell. It's a burst of light healing the target and 4 injured allies within 30 yards, and applies atonement for 60% of its normal duration, and it's on a 15-second recharge. So just to recap then, we're going to put Purge the Wicked on our target, we're going to Rapture, and then get out as many power word shields as we can while Rapture is still up. You can see on my weak aura here, we've got 1 second left, and it's all done. Then we're going to cast our power word Radiance, getting even more atonements out. Oh my goodness, golly gosh, everyone has atonement on them. Of course, by this point, some of them could actually be starting to come to the end. We then have Evangelism, extends the duration of all your active atonements by 6 seconds. So basically then, we're going to put Purge the Wicked on the target, we're going to Rapture so that we can use Power Word Shield on as many people as possible over 8 seconds, and get loads of atonements out. Quickly get out your 2 Power Word Radiances to get out a load more atonements, and then boom, we're going to extend all of those atonements so that we've got as long as possible on all of those ones that we've just got out, and ta-da, you have ramped. That is the end of the ramp. It's actually really fun when you look at it like that. You do need to know the raid bosses quite well so that you know when the damage is coming in, because you obviously have to do this about 10 to 15 seconds before the damage comes in. Then we've got all of our atonements out. So now we need to actually do damage to the boss to heal through the damage we're casting through atonement. So we've got our Shadow Fiend we can cast. It's going to go and attack our target. We're going to use our Mind Blast, which is on a 20-second cooldown, which you can see then our penance has turned to a dark reprimand. My golly gosh, indeed. How unholy. Launches a volley of holy light, but now it's kind of shadowy. And you'll notice that the Halo spell also changed. So I'll go through that in a second. But we're going to use our Shadow Fiend, and then we're going to use our Mind Blast, then we're going to use our Penance, then we're going to use our Shadow Word Death, a word of dark binding that inflicts shadow damage to your target. If your target is not killed by Shadow Word Death, you take a backlash equal to 8% of your maximum health. Damage is increased by 150% to targets below 20% health. So it's super duper when using it against targets at 20% health or below. However, we're still going to use it whenever we can, even if they're above 20% health. And that is because of a talent called Inescapable Torment. How delightful. Penance, Mind Blast, and Shadow Word Death cause your Mindbender or Shadow Fiend to teleport behind your target, slashing up to 5 nearby enemies, and extending its duration by a second. We've got our Void Summoner as well. Your Smite, Mind Blast and Penance are going to reduce the cooldown of Shadow Fiend by 4 seconds. So even though the Shadow Fiend that we're putting onto our target, which is going to actually generate a bit of mana for you as well, by the way, but it is going to also attack your target, the cooldown is actually going to get reduced. If we use our Smite here, you can see the cooldown coming down quite quickly already. The one we have after that is Halo, a big ring of healing and damage, as you can see growing out from me. And then lastly, Smite. This is a spam spell. This is what you're going to spam when you've got nothing else to press on this damage rotation, and you can just spam it to be healing through the damage you're dealing with Smite through Atonement. You'll notice here then, when I was using my Smite, this little buff has come up in an Angel Wing. And this is from the Surge of Light talent here. Your healing spells and Smite have an 8% chance to make your next Flash Heal instant and cost no mana. So Flash Heal isn't on here, but if I use it, you can see on myself, it's literally a Flash Heal. You can use this in times of a little bit of healing is needed, and it's quite quick. It's in my spell book somewhere. Here it is here, Flash Heal, a fast spell that heals an ally. It's that simple. And that, when you get that wing come up, you want to use that. You may also notice when I'm doing my heals, I've actually got this little bubble around me, and it's not Power Word Shield, see? It's a bit different. And that is from Divine Aegis talent down here. Critical heals apply a protective shield on the target, absorbing 5% of the amount healed. Critical heals with Power Word Shield absorb 10% additional damage. And that's basically what that circular shield is you're seeing come up there. Regarding the spells going all shadowy earlier, that's from here. Power of the Dark Side. Shadow Word Pain and Purge the Wicked have a chance to empower your next penance with Shadow, increasing its effectiveness by 50%. So when you see that come up, your penances are going to be doing super duper damage. You also then have this talent, Dark Indulgence. Mind Blast has a 100% chance to grant Power of the Dark Side, and its mana cost is reduced. And we've got Painful Punishment. Each penance bolt extends the duration of Shadow Word Pain and Purge the Wicked on enemies hit by 1.5 seconds. Remember, Purge the Wicked is this spell here, and that actually replaces our Shadow Word Pain. So in your talents, when you see it talking about Shadow Word Pain and you think, well, I haven't got that, that's because it's replaced by Purge the Wicked, so don't worry about that at all. Really, I feel like they should remove that a little bit in the talents because it could be confusing for people. But hey, you've got me, I guess. And that is pretty much it for how you're going to raid heal. Let's just go over the core rotation again so we know what we're doing. We're going to put Purge the Wicked on our raid target, then cast Rapture. This is for the ramp, and we're going to get out as many power word shields as we can in that 8 seconds. Here we go. And then once that ends, we're going to blast out our 2 power word radiances, extend all of our atonements then with evangelism, get our Shadow Fiend out, use our Mind Blast, and then do all our damage with our penance and our Shadow Word Death and our big dark dirty halo, and then using Smite for the rest of it. And when penance comes back off cooldown, and then Shadow Word Death following that rotation there, healing everyone through all of that atonement. And that is pretty much it. So again, it is quite a complex healer. You do need to know the fights, but as you can see, when you get going with it, it's really, really fun. The other things I mentioned but haven't shown you yet is Ultimate Penance, which is like this. And you can see you're blasting out penances and you're in the air, and it's amazing. It's one of my favourite abilities in the game. And Power Word Barrier, which I spoke about earlier, looks like this, which is also amazing. So that's the one where, damage is reduced to everyone inside it. And those 2 big cooldowns that I spoke about. The other thing before we go on to the Mythic Plus side is the set bonus this season. Smite and Penance damage increased by 20%, and Smite is actually going to extend the duration of your active atonements. So say I put Atonement on myself and I've got it on for however long. When I cast Smite, that's going to actually extend the duration of all my active atonements, meaning we can heal for a lot longer through damage without having to reapply those atonements. I think it's a really fantastic set this season. Usually I don't enjoy Disc Priest that much because of all the ramping up you have to keep doing. With this, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The 4 set then, Smite has a 100% chance to cast an additional time during Shadow Covenant, dealing 10,000 damage. Shadow Covenant is this talent here. Shadow Fiend enters you into a shadowy pact, transforming your Halo, Divine Star and Penance into shadow spells and increasing the damage and healing of your shadow spells by 35% while active. And obviously we've already spoken about that in regards to the power of the dark side as well, etc., with all that empowerment. Moving on then to Mythic Plus. If we switch over here, you can see the talents that are actually being changed. So Atonement is going to reduce damage taken by 3%. We've got increasing the damage of Shadow of Pain, Purge the Wicked, and we've also replaced our Shadow Fiend with a Mind Bender to attack the target for 12 seconds. Obviously, we're only dealing with 5 people rather than 20 or 30 or 10, etc. And therefore, we don't need to necessarily ramp, and we have lost our evangelism. Now, the rotation itself hasn't really changed much. We're still just going to put Purge the Wicked on. We can then put our Penance on to spread Purge the Wicked. Remember, it's still going to go to additional targets. And on Trash Packs, this is going to be fantastic. And then we can mainly use our Power Word Radiance, because remember, that's going to heal the target and 4 injured allies, and there's only 5 of you in a dungeon, so that's all you really need to get Atonement up onto the whole party, which is quite nice. After that, you're going to want to get your Mind Bender up, and obviously do your damaging abilities, etc., as you would in the raid. The Mind Bender, with the cooldowns you're going to be getting on it, generally you can get it down to like probably about 45% uptime. It shouldn't be down that long. You should not be like, oh, it's got a 1-minute cooldown, I should really wait to use it. You should be using that Mind Bender as much as you can, nearly, unless you're like, oh, the next pack's going to be quite difficult, I'm going to wait. Don't hold off on using it, is what I'm saying. Do really make use of it. It's a really important spell and minion that we have at our disposal there. Same with Shadow Word Death. Use it in or out of the execute phase. It doesn't matter. Use your Halo, use your Smites, and keep up Purge the Wicked on your targets. And of course, spread it around with your Penance. The majority of the damage is really going to be the same, like I said, from Mind Blast, from Penance, from Shadow Word Death and Smite. And it really is that simple. One thing to note is you don't have your Ultimate Penance in the Mythic Plus build, and we have gone into something like Masty Spell, which is needed a lot more in Mythic Plus than it is in Raids, and Inspiration, which reduces your target's physical damage taken after a critical with Flash Heal or Penance, because you can use your Flash Heal as well. It does apply Atonement when you need to, and don't forget, Penance isn't just for doing damage, it is also actually for healing, and you can use it while moving, by the way, on your Penance. I forgot to talk about that, so there we go. But that's pretty much it, guys. That is how you're going to play oh my god, I've got all tongue twisted. How you're going to play Discipline Priest in Season 4 of Dragonflight in both Mythic Plus and Raiding. And again, if you do need any help at all, please do join my Discord. We've got a very friendly community. You can also sign up to my Patreon. Like I said, you're going to get a lot of WoW spreadsheets with keybinds, etc. I can help you import my entire UI through Patreon and the Discord channel that it opens up, and can give you any extra help, etc. that you may need. Thanks for watching. If you are looking for other Season 4 guides, click this link here. It will take you to the playlist where we've got every single spec that you can play.